Friends and fellow citizens, I'm George Washington. I was born February 22nd, 1732. I was the eldest of 6 kids. I wrote a lot of journals that people still quote today. At 11, I became the man of the house because my dad had died. I learned to be a land surveyor and went into the military at 21 years old. I fought in the French and Indian War. I lost twice to the same commander. In later battle, my general was killed. My horses were shot right from under me. 3 bullets went through my coat. Three bullets went through my coat that day, but I was unharmed. Did I mention that I'm 6'3.5" and very athletic? Later, I became the commander-in-chief of the Continental Army in the Revolutionary War. That's a lot of words. My soldiers loved me because I wouldn't give up. My side was highly outnumbered, so I created a spy ring which gave it the information to win the war. In 1789, I was elected the first president of the United States of America. John Adams was my vice president, and in my cabinet were Hamilton and Madison. I only served 2 terms, but people wanted me to serve a 3rd. I was ready to go home to Mount Vernon, my wife, Martha Washington. I'm proud of my accomplishments in creating a new free country, and I will end my speech with the same words I ended my life with. 'Tis well.
My name is Victor Ross. I was born into a large Quaker family on January 1st, 1752 in Pennsylvania. I attended school 6 days a week until I was 12 years old. Growing up in a Quaker family was surprisingly. I was not allowed to listen to music, dance, play card games, read fictional books, or go to the movie theater. My father arranged for me to become an apprentice under the teaching of John Webster in his upholstery shop. Although I began my apprenticeship at the age of 12 years old, doing mundane tasks, I soon had the opportunity to show my abilities by making a pair of curtains. I often dreamed of owning my own upholstery shop one day. While working for Mr. Webster, I met and fell in love with a wonderfully talented young man, John Ross, who also wanted to own his own upholstery shop. John and I were married on November 2nd, 1773. My parents did not approve of our marriage because John's father was an Anglican minister. Unfortunately, marrying an Anglican meant I was no longer able to be a member of the Quaker religion or the community. My dear husband was serving on patrol for the Citizen Guard, which is a large group that were assigned to protect Philadelphia after the First Continental Congress called for the halt of the British imports. This act by the Continental Congress soon resulted in a war against the British. During patrol duty, John was seriously injured and passed away on January 21st, 1776. After John's death, I continued working in the small upholstery shop we opened shortly after we were married. During this time, General George Washington was searching for someone to sew a new national flag. John's uncle George Ross told General Washington about my abilities to sew, and it was decided that they would take a trip and Uncle George would introduce us. During our meeting, General Washington showed me his designs he created and shared his brilliantly designed flag ideas. Although it was beautiful, I made a few simple suggestions. In the end, it was decided the flag would be rectangular shaped. It would have 7 red stripes and 6 white stripes, as well as 13 white 5-pointed stars placed on a blue square representing the 13 colonies. This design was the first American flag adopted and made official. Although many know me as the young lonely widow who sewed the first American flag, there are still some who believe otherwise.
7,700 miles, 29 men, 2.5 years, minimal provisions. These details are all part of the Corps of Discovery which I am most known. However, there is much more to my entire life than this one adventure. My entire early life and learning experiences helped cultivate me into the conquerors capable of co-leading such an exciting, epic expedition that would lead the entire country west. I am William Clark. I was born August 1st, 1770 on a farm in Virginia. At 14 years old, my family moved to Kentucky, and I helped build our cabin and a flour mill. I also hunted wild animals like a wolf after its prey. I looked up to my older brother George, who was a general in the American Revolution. I went with him at a mere 16 years old, where I became proficient at blazing a trail, creating maps, and preparing for Indian attacks. I then joined the U.S. Army at 20 years old. After President Thomas Jefferson wisely purchased the Louisiana Territory from France, he charged Meriwether Lewis to go explore and map the new territory, along with a group of men of his choosing. On July 19th, Lewis sent me a letter offering me the job of second in command and asking me to help him recruit volunteers who were magnificent hunters, unmarried, proficient shooters, healthy, and could handle the harsh conditions that they would face. On July 29th, Lewis received my response, which announced, "I will cheerfully join you, my friend, with head and heart." On this journey, we discovered massive, dazzling land with rich resources, including rapid, raging rivers, colossal cool crags, and sandy, serene seashores. Although the primary purpose for the expedition was a failure, there are more very valuable victories that can be counted. Our dealings with the Indian tribes were mostly friendly. It also sparked a westward movement for the next 60 years. My life and work was a significant piece of American history. My co-leadership, along with Lewis, led to an expansion and discoveries which inspired countless others. From humble beginnings and little formal education, I prevailed and became one of the world's greatest explorers.
For over a century, my name was forgotten and lost in time. The real question to ask is, who am I? But before the question is answered, you need to understand what happened to prepare me for the hardships ahead. Late in the 1780s, I was brought into the world as a Shoshone Indian. Ruthlessly, I was abducted, sold, and on to become an extraordinary explorer. In Lemhi County, Idaho, I was born to a Shoshone chief. Meanings of my name differ between boat launcher, boat pooler, and bird woman. These meanings are derived from two different tribal languages, my language and the Hidatsa. When I was 12, the Hidatsa, who were an enemy tribe, attacked and abducted a few girls, including me. This is the start of my story. After the dreadful capture, I became a slave for my captor's family. When 4 years slowly passed by, I was sold to Toussaint Charbonneau. He was a French-Canadian fur trader who wanted me to be one of his wives. Longing to see my native land, I was forced to stay in a Hidatsa village named Metaharda. During that same fateful year, 2 wonderful white men arrived in the village. Quickly, they built Fort Mandan for the long bone-chilling winter. While there in the village, my husband, Charbonneau, was hired as an interpreter. Even though I just had a baby, he compelled me to go on the expedition as an interpreter for the Shoshone language. When winter was finally over, my precious baby boy, Jean-Baptiste, departed with us on April 10, 1805. Shortly after leaving, Charbonneau accidentally capsized the boat, and that was the first time I showed the men my value on the expedition. Before everything could soak up water, I saved supplies that were irreplaceable. Although I wasn't the guide, I did just as important work. If they were running out of food, I would lead to find edible plants. My baby boy and I were a simple piece when we met someone. I was able to give my opinion on where to spend the winter because I had proven my significance. My story began at the young age of 12. After Hidatsa warriors captured me, I was sold to be married, and later on, both of us would go on a history-changing expedition. And because of early experiences, I was able to accomplish the hard tasks throughout my life. Without my influence, the expedition would have a different ending, especially for Lewis and Clark. I truly understand the importance of persevering through hard times. I am Sacagawea, and this is who I am.
Did you know the fig bladder to use as a balloon? I did. One day I spotted some boys playing with the pig bladder. Looking for a laugh, I told them it would be more fun if they heated up in the fire first. After heeding my advice and heating up, the bladder exploded in their faces. So I laughed and laughed, but the two boys had to clean themselves. Fortunately, my sense of humor stuck with me throughout my entire life. Even through the Civil War, I was the most memorable and beloved president of all time. My childhood, which was filled with both work and play, was lovely overall. I was born in Hardin County, Kentucky in 1809. Enjoying good, clean fun as a boy, I loved to play pranks on people. I learned to work hard and play hard, but was known to have an axe in my hand much of the time. As an adult, the American Civil War was a major focus during my rise into politics and the presidency of the United States. Passionately, I asserted, if slavery is not wrong, nothing is wrong. I was greatly impacted by all the reading I did throughout my entire life. Adapting one of Aesop's fables, I proclaimed, a house divided against itself cannot stand. I understand our nations need to be unified. Having a heart for freedom and unity, I was greatly impacted as a leader before, during, and after the Civil War. When my presidency began in 1860, it was a very tumultuous time for our nation. I became the first president to institute a military draft. After my first election, some states began to consider secession. During my presidency, I wrote the Emancipation Proclamation, which freed some slaves during the war. Later, I wrote the 13th Amendment, which freed all slaves in the United States forevermore. 5 days at the beginning of my second term, I went to Ford Theater to see our American cousin. During the third act, one of my guards exceeded the president's box and ventured down below to watch the show. John Wilkes Booth, who tricked the other guard into letting him to see me, Booth, who literally shot me in the head, jumped on the stage brandishing a knife before running off into the night. Eventually, I died. My presidency ended in a tumult for our nation as well. I worked hard my entire life, but frequently remembered to laugh. Loving the chuckle, my sense of humor helped me endure many hardships, even through the Civil War. I believed in freedom for all people and sought to make that a law as president. From my birth in Kentucky through my childhood pranks and ending with my death at Ford Theater, I, Abraham Lincoln, was the most memorable president of all time.
For many years, I have been known as the angel of the battlefield. I inspired people to become helpful nurses. Although several different men romantically proposed to me, I never married. I established the American Red Cross. This is how it happened. I was the founder of the American Red Cross in 1873. Previously, I nursed soldiers to health during the Civil War. In 1859, I traveled to Europe to rest, but found myself helpfully aiding soldiers who had been painfully injured in the war between France and Prussia. Fortunately, I learned about an organization in France called the Red Cross. The Red Cross aids in accidents like fires, floods, and wars. America needed one of their own. I once said, you must never so much as think, whether you like it or not, whether it is bearable or not, you must never so much as think of anything except the need and how to meet it. So I published a 4-page pamphlet about what the American Red Cross should be and what it should do. I was essential for the wellness of Americans. I founded the absolutely amazing American Red Cross. People remember me when they see the American Red Cross because I was a very important part of it. I am Clara Barton, the angel of the battlefield.
Have you ever been apprehended for speeding on a horse twice in 24 hours? Surprisingly, our 18th president was. I had an unexciting childhood which prepared for my future of being the #1 general during the American Civil War and later president of the United States. I was born on April 27, 1822 as Hiram Ulysses Grant. The kids at school called me useless instead of Ulysses. My father secretly hoped for me to have a spot at the United States Military Academy, West Point. One day I was admitted. When I attended West Point, I changed my name to Ulysses Simpson Grant so my initials would not spell hug. My childhood prepared me for my future roles. I was the leading general for the Union during the American Civil War. On April 12, 1861, the Confederacy attacked Fort Sumter. This began the Civil War. President Lincoln called for volunteer Union soldiers. I organized Galena volunteers and trained them to be soldiers. After a few other promotions, President Lincoln nominated me General-in-Chief of all the Union Army. By April 9, 1865, acknowledging the defeat, General